I am relaunching this podcast because the customer experience industry is running in the wrong direction. And for 4 entire years and 157 episodes long, I was running with it. Welcome to 15 Minutes Customer Obsession. I am Peggy, your host, and this is the place where we turn touch points into trust points for people, customers, and humans in business. Today, I want to share with you the true reason I started this podcast all over. Everyone's racing toward AI. More automation, more efficiency, more scale. I'm running too. But I'm running toward something different. I'm running toward what makes leaders irreplaceable in an age when everything else can be automated. And to explain why, I need to tell you before something uncomfortable about what I was doing. Yes, what I was doing, and more importantly, what I do differently today. Let's go and dive deep in. Every episode of the podcast, the former podcast, Customer Experience Tuning Hacks, by the way, in German language, it's still online if you manage to understand. These episodes answered the same question over and over again. What do great companies do so great? And what can I do, what can you do to copy and paste it? All good stuff. 157 times. I had also good interviews, hacks, methods, frameworks, best practices, stories also, good content. I think the listener numbers are showing this to me. Thank you for this, by the way. So, genuinely useful. And then I looked at this number, and this number is actually really following me since a long time, because it's so shocking. 80% of companies believe they deliver a superior customer experience, and only 8% of customers really agree on this. So there's a little bit of a, let's say, movement in the last years, but basically is this. This is the experience gap, it's called. You can also Google this. So, but one thing is clear, it's not a measurement problem, it is a thinking problem. And I was feeding it, episode after episode, giving people tactics for a game that was already being played wrong. Why wrong? Because here we have one road, 2 outcomes. This is what I see in our industry happening right now in many companies, in startups, in well-established firms, in mid-sized firms, in great global player firms. Number one is the old game. Basically, automation, AI, efficiency, scale. Transactional competition, response time, resolution rates. You become very good at moving customers through the process and measure everything. KPIs, no? And then, very bad actually, connecting with the customers themselves. This is the result. And this is shown by this experience gap number. And then there's this second road, and this is the new road, the new game, I call that. First step is self-awareness, then connection, and then irreplaceable experience, a state transformation. Not what you do matters, who you are when you do it. And this is what really, really converts all the great concepts into these results that we all are aiming for. So as AI handles more and more customer interactions, and this is the paradox of all, genuine human presence becomes worth more and more, not less. Scarcity creates value, always, always. So AI creates efficiency and humans create transformation. And transformation is what customers actually pay for and what they want in these days. Let me share with you a story. A story from an airline company that changed everything, actually. It was a turning point. Also, here in the podcast history. So a major airline asked me to help upgrading their first class experience. They didn't want tactics. They wanted true disruption. They wanted to fly to the moon. Wow. First class, please. So I did my homework. I looked at the data before, all the written papers they had, brand documents. And then I was sitting there, I was crossing my arms, I was looking in all of this, in all the different languages I was looking. And I tell you, between me and you, the only point that I found was, it was all about them. It was about the brand, the gorgeous brand, the history of the brand, the tradition of the brand, the icon, the greatness, wow. I was going to say, wow, you are really full of yourself. Great, great. But going to the moon, you need to have a different mindset, and you need a little bit to think about your customers, guys. You need to, have the customer also in first priority if you want to put them in first class. Yes, and because really bottom line was there was all about the brand and very little about the customer. So I gave them at the end of my presentation, they took notes and they nodded and they liked it. But at the end, it required to change how they thought about passengers. And not just how to place a red rose on the tray in the first class reception after takeoff. I was describing transformation. And this is what requires to fly to the moon. A different way of thinking. And this was the moment for me when I thought, this is it. This has to change. The problem is never their tactics. The problem was upstream of tactics entirely. Every customer experience program I've seen, including the ones I built myself, answered the question, what should we do differently? Nobody is asking, who do we need to become? That is the question this podcast exists to answer. Customer experience is something you install. Customer obsession and the genuine human experience, the GHX, is something you become. One you can buy, the other requires transformation from inside out. One more thing I want to name and tell you. The biggest hurdle in modern business isn't lack of information. It's the gap between what we know and what we actually do. We consume endless content. We think we are learning, but we are not practicing. My goal isn't to give you another framework to file away. My goal is to give you one impulse that stays with you this week. One question that makes you look at your team differently. One insight that shifts how you show up, how you talk to your customers, what decisions you make. Most podcasts give you answers. I'm giving you also questions in addition. Because the question is more valuable than the answer when you are developing the capacity for genuine human connection yourself. The question makes you look within. It makes you observe, reflect, and change. That is how transformation actually happens. customer obsession from the inside out. You can't obsess over customers if you don't know yourself, the feeling first. In this week's category Human or Hype, we talk about being authentic. Is that human or is this a hype as a customer experience strategy? Everywhere I look, companies are telling their teams be more authentic, connect, show empathy. These aren't, in my opinion, strategies. These are wishes, because you cannot develop a capacity you haven't defined. And you cannot ask your team to be authentic if you haven't done the internal work yourself first. Authenticity isn't a communication style or a method. It is a result of self-awareness, reflection, and practice. It's the difference between performing connection or actually being connected. Let me say this sentence again. There is a difference between performing connection and actually being connected to someone. One your customer feel, and one they see straight through. So this week, this is a hype. Being authentic as a customer experience directive without the leadership development to back it up is the most expensive wishful thinking in the industry right now. The question for the next week will be, if your customers could hear the last conversation your leadership team had about them, about customers, would they feel like the priority or would they feel like a problem? This was episode 3 of 15 Minutes Customer Obsession. And if this has landed with you, send it to one leader or to a friend or colleague in your network who needs to hear this entire episode. Send my best regards. Thank you for being with me here. And never forget, AI is great, but humanity is the driving force. See you next Tuesday.